In the Lost Mines of Phandelver, the village of Phandalin is the most detailed and diverse area in the module. Even though the adventure begins somewhere else, when the characters eventually make their way to Phandalin, it becomes clear to everyone that this is going to be the story hub of the adventure. It's where the characters pick quests, meet NPCs, and rest between their crazy journeys to the wilderness. But how do we actually create a story hub? And what should be the main focus when writing the story hub for our campaign? This is the first video in a two-part series I'm doing on creating story hubs. Today I want to give you a list of essential steps in building a story hub, and in the next video we'll dive in depth into tools, tips and tricks to make your story hub more interesting to explore. Ready? Let's go! What's up Battleflums, my name is Aviar and I make videos to help game masters craft the best experience they can. Today we're doing that with story hubs. An example for a story hub is the starting area we see in some video games. When you play an RPG game, you usually start in a location with a few beginner quests that you can pick up and run with, like the Circle Tower in Dragon Age Origins or any of the Horde starting areas in World of Warcraft.
Hey, what about the Alliance?
What about the Alliance?
I don't know, shouldn't you mention them as well?
Shouldn't you mention them as well? Get out of here, Alliance scum!
Okay, fine, sheesh!
Kick. Anyway, in this guide we'll go over a few essential steps to build a similar story hub for your campaign. The first step is to figure out where it is. What is the idea or broad concept that we are working with? A story hub can be a town or a village like Phandalin, but it can also be a caravan with dozens of carriages that travels between settlements, or an encampment near a fresh excavation site where ancient artifacts are being dug out every day. An idea alone doesn't make for a story hub. We'll have to flesh it out. So the second step is figuring out what are the storylines or quests that you want your characters to go through. We'll figure out how to make the players care about these story threads later, but for now we should just focus on what would be interesting or cool for them to explore.
But shouldn't we think of...
Oh my god, you again? Can't you see I'm in the middle here?
Yeah, but you were talking and I had a question.
Fine, what?
Shouldn't we think of people and places in the story hub first?
That's actually a good question.
Thanks man, I knew we could get along.
Don't get ahead of yourself, Alliance pig. The reason that I start with storylines first is that it makes it easier to think of plot hooks later. If I have the storyline in mind when I create an NPC, it's easier for me to connect them to the story. That way when the characters talk to that NPC, it serves a narrative purpose and drives the game forward. This is my personal preference, but maybe for you it makes more sense to think about people and locations first. Maybe if you have a fleshed out NPC in mind, it makes it easier to figure out what troubles them and build an adventure around that. There's no right and wrong here as long as you choose the Horde over the Alliance. Some classic examples for storylines include exploring a dungeon, finding a lost person, domesticating owlbears, you know, the classics. When I think of a new storyline, I try to focus on the location we chose in the first step. If we chose a small remote village as a story hub, what are some problems it might have? Maybe their leader is corrupt. Maybe people are disappearing every night. Maybe they are all slowly turning into mind flayers and it's just a matter of time before they capture the player characters as well. If you already have an idea for a cool adventure, you are set for this step. If you are still considering, I made a mini series about adventure building so you can get some ideas over there. The third step would be creating points of interest within the area. If we have a village, this could be locations like a tavern, a notice board on the main road, an abandoned dried up well, a local bakery. The options are endless, so we need to be careful not to get carried away. The points of interest we create should help us tie the storylines we thought of earlier. Where would the characters hear about the corrupt village leader? Probably in the tavern. Where can they hear about the missing people? The notice board, but also in the tavern.
Wait, you just said there are 2 locations for one storyline?
Yeah.
But what if they hear about the same storyline twice?
That probably means you did a good job, you Murloc. It's a good idea to have multiple entry points to the same quest or storyline. That way, even if the character missed one of the locations, they wouldn't miss the entire quest we have planned. Each entry point gives the characters more information and presents them with a different perspective. Showing multiple facets of the same story makes your world feel more realistic. When we plan the locations, we should write down a few bullets that will help us describe them. I like to focus on the things that set them apart. If it's a tavern, we know it probably sells ale and has rooms to offer. That's easy to improvise. What makes this tavern unique? Is it the food, the structure, the eye-catching piece of art that seems to change whenever you look at it? Okay, here's one. Maybe the tavern is owned by a bard that casts Awakening on the chandelier, giving it sentience and the ability to speak and understand language. Now it eavesdrops on all the conversations within the establishment. There's nothing Shanna the Chandeliers enjoy more than good gossip.
Did you just make an NPC?
No shit, Murloc.
Just saying.
Oh, Pillar, help me. Yes, sometimes the thing that sets the location apart is just the cool NPC we can find there. Nothing wrong with that. The fourth essential step is creating NPCs, and like you've noticed, they can be tied to locations. Like locations, NPCs can be used to hook storylines, but instead of answering where the party encounters the hook, they help us answer how. In our example, we have a village with people disappearing every night, and we've established that the characters can either learn about it on the notice board outside or in the local tavern. The notice board is pretty self-explanatory, but the tavern less so. We should think about the NPCs that will inform the characters about this issue within the tavern. Perhaps the barkeep will tell them that his father disappeared 2 weeks ago. Or maybe it's the exhausted half-elf in the corner that spent the entirety of last night looking for her wife in the woods. Now she looks as if she's going to take a nap with the breakfast gruel as a pillow. The social encounters that NPCs provide can help us appeal to the characters on a personal level, making it more likely for them to actually care about the storyline and follow through. That of course assumes the characters are decent humanoid beings that care for something other than filling their bags with gold, but if that's the case, the notice board should work just fine anyway. Like I mentioned earlier, you can alter the order of these steps. So if you start with a really cool NPC named Barty McFly, you should think about locations where the player characters can find him so they actually interact. NPCs can be found in more than one place, so the characters can find Barty buying wing oil from the odd-looking merchant or drinking his pain away in the local inn. Going in depth on NPC design is way out of scope for this video, but I think the simplest tip I have is to figure out what they know and what they want. An NPC with a clear goal is easier to roleplay, and if we know what new information they can provide, it will make the conversation more interesting overall. These are the essential steps in creating a story hub. I think a couple of storylines, locations, and NPCs would be the bare minimum I'd feel comfortable to run with. But more often I'd want a bit more than that. Sure, the storylines are important and we want the characters to follow them, but it's nice when the world feels more than just a bunch of people with yellow exclamation marks over their heads. So how can we create that? As I was writing this video, I ran into this video by Zipper on Disney on the exploration pillar, and it gave me plenty of inspiration. To be more accurate, it refined the question I was after. What would make our story hub more interesting to explore? I leave that question to you, my friend. I'm looking forward to reading your ideas in the comments. And in the next part, we will dive deeper into that question and showcase some ideas and tools that will help us create a place our players will never forget. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, you can smash that like and subscribe buttons with your mage hand. Until next time, friend, remember that you are awesome. Keep being awesome. And I'll see you beyond the screen.